حرية, عدالة اجتماعية. Bread, freedom, and social justice. Our history is full of powerful slogans like these, which reflects the significance of food in our lives, not just as a source of nourishment, but as a fundamental birthright. An excellent social mechanism for solidarity and a force for dignity, تكافل وكرامة. Growing up in Cairo, one of my most vivid childhood memories is my weekly trip to the farmer's market with my mum. It was a feast for the senses. The air was thick with aroma. Spices, fresh herbs, fresh fruit, and vegetables covered in earth. It was a real symphony of life, brought to sound by small food producers calling upon their one or two signature produce. Magnuna ya uta! Crazy red tomatoes bursting with ripeness. Ya helwa ya shahd. Sweet melon dripping with honey. And as my mum approaches and I follow her, the excitement intensifies as I listen to the stories. Where did they come from? They tell us about the fields, their produce, how long they traveled, what exciting things we can do with their food, and how long we can keep it for. The excitement gets even more intense as one of them picks one fruit, wipe it against their galabeya, and hand it over to me to eat. And what a treat. In Cairo, the third largest city in Africa, that bustling market was my first gateway into the natural world, into life itself. But as I grew older, I watched the food landscape in Cairo change slowly but surely. Newspaper kiosks that once were piled up with affordable books were now stacked up with colorful packets of crisps and ultra-processed snacks and chocolate bars with foreign names on, replacing the good old Shamaiden, the last-standing Egyptian chocolate brand. The melodies faded as I took my first step into a supermarket for the first time in my entire life as a 17-year-old young woman. Convenience replaced authenticity, and fast food replaced tradition. Fast food chain restaurants spread like wildfires. Their bright neon lights shed their glow across the streets of Cairo. The West has arrived. And then I moved to the West myself, to France to start with, the capital of food culture in the world. And there I learned about the food sovereignty movement and produits de terroir, food that is rooted in place, culture, and tradition. Before moving to France, my only food growing experience was sprouting fenugreek on the kitchen surface with my mum, a tradition she picked up from her mum and her grandmum before her. But now, in the south of Paris, I had something unimaginable. I had a garden. I wanted to grow my own food, but I didn't know where to start. Luckily for me, I was surrounded by a community of gardeners. And one day, Madame Marché walks into my garden and she sees the little aubergine plants that I had just picked up from the farmer's market. And she looks at me and says knowingly, "Fatma, this is not Egypt, this is France. You can't grow aubergines as your first growing experience. You'll give up even before you start." I planted my aubergines, and that year, something remarkable happened. A canicule hit. The 2013 heat wave hit the Parisian region, and that summer, I ended up harvesting and giving away kilos and kilos of aubergines to friends and neighbors, including Madame Marché. Beginner's luck, if it wasn't for the canicule. It's remarkable how climate change manifests itself in different ways in different parts of the world. In one region, it can mean severe droughts and crop failures, and in another, it can mean more beach days and a glut of summer crops. And as my journey brings me to the UK, I start mapping out the region. Where do I get good food to nourish my young family? And I stumble upon the farmers market in Exeter, and there I meet Shillingford Organics, a community of agroecological producers, true stewards of the land. I start volunteering there, and soon after I set up Shillingford Organics Farm School, a land-based social educational enterprise that teaches people about food, where it comes from, and how it impacts their health and that of the environment. Our experiences at Farm School were truly embodied as we walked the farm. We feasted on what was at arm's length. We made creamy soup from wild garlic and nettles and crispy Brussels sprout bhajis at Christmas. Throughout the years, I watched children who once only ate beige food pick things like kale and broad beans and eat it off the plant. Their fear and anxiety were replaced with excitement about trying new foods. What a myth that children don't like good food. But what seemed to be a feat didn't quite cut it for me. The children who came to farm school were from families who were middle class, who had the resources, the education, and the aptitude to value this kind of provision. How about children whose parents don't have a car, or whose families work 0-hour contracts and don't have the time to bring them to a weekend or an after-school farm activity? How can I reach those children and their families? And one day, it dawned on me, I have to get into schools. Well, let me tell you why. There are about 418 million free school meals given on any school day across the world, making it one of the most widespread social safety nets globally. And the UK, to my surprise, is no exception. In England alone, about a quarter of children who go to school are eligible for free school meals, which means that they come from families who earn about £7,400 a year or less, and that number is consistently growing. The government introduced universal infant free school meals about 10 years ago in order to extend free school meal offer to all children in the first 3 years of their primary education. In addition to this, in the same year, food education became a curriculum statutory requirement. Yet these policies have not led to improvement in provision. The government in the UK spends about £2.5 billion on public food procurement, of which schools are the largest recipient. Yet the literature suggests that about 70% of school meals are made up of ultra-processed foods, and more children leave primary education obese or overweight than when they started. So the mechanisms are there, but the system is broken. The food system, however, is but a reflection to the broader overall food system, of which agriculture alone is responsible for almost 1/3 of greenhouse gas emissions and the #1 polluter of the soil, the very fine layer of skin that sustains our lives on Earth. These challenges led me to my PhD I got a scholarship to do a PhD in 2019, and like any starting PhD student, I asked a wicked question. What would a healthy, environmentally friendly, socially acceptable, and financially viable food system look like in the UK? So to start with, I conducted an exploratory study where I did observations in different school settings. I spoke to caterers, school leaders, teachers, parents, champions across the country, and what I concluded that 3 defining principles for sustainable school meals. 1, reversion to scratch cooking by using fresh, raw ingredients. 2, reducing meat and increasing plant-based alternatives such as seeds, vegetables, and legumes. 3, prioritizing sustainable food procurement by sourcing more local organic food. We also found that schools cannot separate school meals from food education. Hugh Fearnley-Whittingstall put it beautifully when he said, you can't separate what a school does around food from what a school says about food. They are both the same thing. We also found that school food is a dynamic system which involves lots of different people. These stakeholders come with a diversity of skill set and significant role to play. If we were to transform the food system in schools, we have to involve those people. So, in order to test these results, I partnered with 3 different schools in the southwest of England with different demographics and catering models, and together we co-designed, implemented, and evaluated what I believe to be the first sustainable school food intervention in the country. And the findings were astounding. The sustainable school meals not only were nutritionally optimal by following the school food standards, they also generated less greenhouse gas emissions. They were financially viable. They included less ultra-processed food, and more children ate it. Teachers and parents reported that children were more keen and excited to try new food thanks to food education. We also found that food education is particularly important for children from disadvantaged background who often have limited access to authentic, meaningful food experiences, a phenomena we refer to as the extinction of food experience. One of the kids said in a focus group, I really enjoyed cooking the most because I never get to do it at home. Another said, during a field trip, part of the intervention study to a farm, he was enthusiastically eating freshly harvested beetroot and quietly putting away some in his pockets. And as I approached him, I asked him, did you enjoy this? He said, I wanted my mum to try it. I don't think she's ever seen this before. It's interesting how we talk about choice when our choices are often dictated by systemic inequalities. If you have never seen a freshly harvested, vibrant, full of life beetroot, how can you ever choose it? So to build on this work, I came to Cornwall, and I collaborated with Sustainable Food Cornwall and Cornwall Council, and together we started exploring how can we transform the school food system in one of the most deprived regions in Europe. So I went into schools, I went to local agroecological farms, and I spoke to head teachers, pupils, food educators, caterers, and the results were fascinating. Despite all the challenges, Cornwall is a center for social innovation. We found that local agroecological farmers all the way from the Tamar Valley to Sanjust are keen to grow food for schools, but they need the support and the capacity building in order to be able to access the school food market. Imagine if the 258 schools in Cornwall partnered with local agroecological producers and sourced about 70%, 50%, even 20% of the ingredients for the school meals from local agroecological producers. We know that agroecology has a strong link with food security and nutrition. So imagine, what would that do to the local economy, to the health of the most disadvantaged groups of our population, and to climate resilience? Too good to be true? Well, when I first planted my aubergines in my Paris garden, I was told it was impossible. And that year, a climate change-induced heat wave proved otherwise. We will never know what is possible until we try, and we are running out of time. A fairer future starts on our children's plates, and we must prioritize school food that is healthy for pupils and the planet if we are to transform our food system and truly level up the nation. But do we have the will to try? Thank you.